There's no question that America at its best is a land of opportunity, and if you bust your ass, you can live your own personal dream. However, it has gotten way too hard. Underemployment is the least talked about, most powerful thing in our economy. More people are working harder than they ever have. I'll tell you what it means. And look, that's part of the problem.
I don't know what that is.
All right, two media titans just went head-to-head, and it completely exposed the massive disconnect between the corporate media elite and everyday working Americans. Bill O'Reilly joined Chris Cuomo on NewsNation, and instead of a standard economic debate, it turned into an absolute shouting match over who is to blame for the financial crisis suffocating the middle class. O'Reilly didn't hold back. He looked directly into the camera and declared that if you are struggling financially after working for 15 years, it is entirely your own fault. This sparked an immediate, furious pushback from Cuomo, exposing a fundamental divide in how the ruling class views the economic reality on the ground. We are breaking down the footage to show you the exact moment the debate derailed and why this exact rhetoric is absolute political suicide. Before we roll the tape, if you are sick of the corporate echo chamber and want the raw, unfiltered truth behind the headlines, smash that subscribe button right now, join the community, and let's dive into the breakdown.
It's why so many Americans are desperate. They believe the government won't help. That's why they're looking for outsiders. But you don't need a rap sheet to be righteous. You don't have to make a deal with the devil to appeal to people who are desperate for change, because for them, the real devil is in the details of their daily existence. Now, I want to bring Bill O'Reilly in and see how he sees this economy playing out in the midterms. Do you think that this is going to be the main motivational issue come November?
Yes, I think it will be, although the communism thing is rapidly obscuring the day-to-day spending habits of Americans. So the communist thing is very detrimental to the Democratic Party. But
what is the communist thing?
This. Hello, are you on the planet Earth, ma'am Donnie?
Yeah, but I mean, just because Trump calls people who want change communists doesn't mean that it's resonating.
Okay, if you study the man, he's a communist, so is his father. All right, he wants to control the means of production in New York City. He's going to use regulations to get landlords out of business. He's going to try to control the food flow into the city. So you can sit there and say, I don't believe it. People believe what they want to believe. Man's a hardcore communist. And so are the two others who were
Listen, my brother ran against him, right, and lost twice. The policies he's put in place are barely socialistic, let alone not communistic. And here's what I don't get about the communist thing. One, there is no such thing as a communist country, okay? There is none that is technically communist. You got North Korea, you got Russia, you got China. And the weird thing about those places, the only semblance of affinity I've ever seen is that Trump respects all three leaders. Trump thinks that Kim is a strong leader, Putin's a strong leader, and Xi is a strong leader. He's the only guy who said anything positive about communism.
That goes day by day because he wants to get a deal with those people. Cuba is probably the best example of a communist country where you cannot do anything without permission of the government. So look, we're not going to solve this. I believe that Mandani is a communist. You don't freeze rents across the board unless you want to control where people live. You just don't. Now, the affordability thing. So Trump's point of view is this. Okay, it's tight times for many Americans, but there's only so much the federal government can do about that. And I brought this up with Vittert last night. If you have $1,000 and that's all you have, okay, for a medical emergency or your kid's in trouble or whatever it may be, if you have $1,000 and you've been working, 10, 15 years someplace, whose fault is that? That's your fault. Okay? Because there is a way to accumulate assets in this country that's called capitalism. All right? You accumulate them. And then I give the example, and I think you would buy into this because your neighborhood was fairly close to my neighborhood in New York. Since I'm 10 years old, I worked. And my father, and one of the pieces of advice he gave me, probably the only one I ever took, was every time you get a paycheck, you save 10% of it, and then you buy into the capitalistic system, buy stocks and bonds. And I have done that, and the stock market, as everybody knows, has enriched a lot of people. Now, 58% of Americans have stock, the rest don't. But again, whose fault is that? So I'm not sure the affordability crisis is the right way to frame this. But I will cede to you that it is an emotional issue, that it's real, people are suffering, and that's not going to help the Republican Party. It will not. But if you want to build assets in this country, you can build them. But if you sit on your butt doing nothing, you can't.
Yeah, I think, look, Bill, I think that's where the road diverges, okay? There's no question that America at its best is a land of opportunity, and if you bust your ass, you can live your own personal dream. However, it has gotten way too hard. Underemployment is the least talked about, most powerful thing in our economy. More people are working harder than they ever have. I'll tell you what it means. And look, that's part of the problem.
I don't know what that is. What's underemployment?
Here's underemployment. Unemployment is who has a job. Underemployment is how good is the job. And more Americans are working more hours for less, working multiple jobs, and they are not getting the wage growth to keep up with prices, so they can't save.
Then why don't they do something? Why don't they do something about it? So
They're working more than ever. They don't have time to go to community college.
They don't have time. Okay.
They're working multiple jobs. When you and I grew up in Queens, Bill, one middle-class income was enough for a whole family and a pace for home ownership. Now you got both parents working and sometimes one of the kids.
It's a different time now, okay? So community college is free across the board. So if you're not making any money in your job, okay, maybe you want to figure out a better job. Get more skills. Just driving an Uber in New York City, you can pile up some serious cash. Just driving an automobile, okay? So I don't know what this underemployment is. I worked at jobs where I wasn't fairly paid, okay? And I got another job because I knew I was getting hosed. Now,
let's pause the tape right there, because this is the exact moment the fundamental divide in America is laid completely bare. O'Reilly drops a massive bomb by claiming that if you only have $1,000 saved up after 10 or 15 years in the workforce, you have no one to blame but yourself. He looks back at his childhood in Queens, recycling the old school advice to just save 10% of your paycheck and invest it in stocks. But look at how Chris Cuomo completely dismantles this out-of-touch fantasy. He introduces a critical concept that mainstream talking heads constantly try to ignore: underemployment, working multiple or lower-paying jobs despite needing more hours and higher wages. Cuomo rightly points out that when they were growing up, a single middle-class income could buy a home and support an entire family. Today, both parents are working separate shifts, the kids are working, and inflation is eating every single dollar before it can even hit a savings account. Pay close attention to O'Reilly's solution. He tells struggling Americans to just go to free community college or drive an Uber to pile up serious cash. It completely ignores the brutal reality Cuomo lays out. Working class people literally do not have the time to go back to school because they are trapped on an economic hamster wheel, working 60+ hours a week just to keep the lights on. This isn't a lack of effort, it is a systemic trap. But the debate takes an even crazier twist when O'Reilly is forced to admit who is actually rigging the game. Watch this.
One caveat to this: insurance companies, healthcare companies, airline companies, oil companies are all gouging the American people right now. They are using capitalism. Look, the airline industry, their jet fuel costs have dropped significantly, but not their ticket prices. They spend billions of dollars telling you to buy State Farm, paying these people exorbitant amounts of money, and then you, a good client, okay, no accidents, no fires in the house, get a premium renewal that's up 30% with no explanation.
Now you're getting it.
This is, no, I've always gotten it, Cuomo, but I'm not a black and white kind of guy. If I'm in a circumstance where I'm underemployed, then I get more credentials to make more money. And you can do that here. Mandami ain't gonna save you. He'll make your life worse.
I think that if the Republican Party argues in the midterms that the reason times are tough is because you're not doing enough to help yourself, they're going to have an epic defeat because people are working harder than ever, and the system has made it harder than it ever has been before. And it's about the choices. You just named some of the good fixes. There's some fixes to be had here.
History proves you wrong. The Great Depression was far and away, okay, the most onerous economic thing that's ever happened. So you can't make that comparison at all. But if the Republicans go out and say, hey, Clyde, the reason you don't have any money is because you're not smart enough to figure out the system and make more, you're right. Clyde ain't going to vote for you. But that is the truth.
Especially when a lot of those people were MAGA. And let me tell you something about that.
I don't care who they are.
Great Depression. Let me tell you about the Great Depression. Let me tell you what the big difference was. How did we get out of the Great Depression?
Yes.
Federal government action.
World War II. No.
Federal government action.
It was a war that got us out. It was a war that got us out of the Great Depression. The war was a catalyst to the economy after the war. And let me tell you, if you study Truman, as I have. Not after the war. No, after the war. It was during the build-up to World War II that the economy turned around in this country. Fact.
Well, that is true, because that was the New Deal. The New Deal absolutely helped people get out from under it. I know my family was among them. The New Deal from FDR helped people get out of the Great Depressions, Bill. That's what it is, not an opinion.
I'm coming to your house and tutoring you on history because you badly need it. The New Deal was a safety net process. It wasn't underemployment. It wasn't giving people free stuff. It was a safety net.
Yes, and that has been eroded.
In a shocking pivot, O'Reilly actually agrees with Cuomo that massive corporate monopolies, airlines, healthcare giants, oil companies, and insurance firms are actively gouging the American people. He admits they are raising premiums by 30% with zero explanation just to fund executive salaries and multi-billion-dollar ad campaigns. Yet, even after admitting the system is heavily rigged at the top, O'Reilly doubles down on his tough love stance, launching into a historical shouting match over whether FDR's New Deal or the build-up to World War II saved the country from the Great Depression. He even tells Cuomo he needs to go to his house to tutor him on history. But Cuomo lands the final, devastating blow. If the establishment continues to tell hardworking people that the reason they are broke is because they aren't smart enough to figure out the system, they are staring down an epic, historic political defeat. When you look at this entire debate, the macro takeaway for Floor Leader Insider is incredibly clear. The media elite love to treat poverty as a moral failure or a lack of intelligence, rather than the predictable result of corporate greed and wage stagnation. You cannot tell people who are working harder than ever that they are simply lazy. Who do you think won this clash? Was O'Reilly right about personal responsibility, or did Cuomo expose how out of touch the old guard really is? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button, subscribe to help us blow past our 1K goal, and turn on notifications so you never miss a reality check. This is Floor Leader Insider, and we'll see you on the next one.